your spiritual awakening journey and you feel kind of blocked up with your spiritual and psychic gifts and not exactly sure what to focus on, well, I'm going to answer a question from one of my beautiful cosmic community members, Thomas. If you're watching this, this is for you and for everybody here. And so let's get into it. And before I get into this, I want to say, everybody interfaces with spiritual things differently. Okay, everybody has different gifts and abilities. This is my journey and what I went on, and so if it helps you too, great. But this is a path that you have to figure out with self on how you connect with spirit and your gifts. So when I got into spirituality, I was not doing it with the intention to tap into like psychic things or different modalities. I was literally just so depressed and anxious and fed up with my life. I was in a very deep, dark place. I had a very, very intense dark night of the soul where everything in my life was stripped. It made me question everything I was ever told in life. It felt like the foundations were falling out from under me, like I didn't have a steady foot on any type of timeline. Those before I knew what timelines were. But it was just very scary. And one day I was crying on the bathroom floor on vacation with my then partner, and I was crying out to the universe saying, I will do whatever it takes to change my life. I'm so sick and fed up of living this facadal life where nothing feels in resonance or alignment, and I'm miserable. And then that's when I hit the dark night of the soul and the universe said, bet. Okay. But honestly, that had to happen because I had lived through a lot of trauma in my life and I was ignoring it. And it was just so painful to process those emotions and those memories. And that was causing my anxiety and depression and masking and people pleasing and not holding boundaries and all of those things a lot of us have experienced. And so I really had to kind of face myself in the mirror and say, well, the only person that's going to fix this is me, right? It's not my fault that happened, and I'm sure it's not anyone here's fault that those things happen to you either, but that's just life. And also that's known as the healer's path. Okay, there's a lot of people that soul contracted to have very difficult incarnations because you learn how to heal yourself with those things, and then that's your trial by fire to go help other people, because you can only heal other people with how deep you've been with self. And also I had to go on a very deep, radical self-love journey because I hated myself. Like, I could not stand myself at all, and the universe is like, what are we doing here? Okay, because self-love is the key to everything. It's the key to unlocking everything, all the spiritual gifts, the psychic gifts, the money, the business you want to own. Like, it's all self-love and self-concept. And so I did have to get stripped of everything so that at the end of the day, I really only had me, and I had to become my very best friend. I went on this very intensive healing journey. And I had to learn how to heal things that were going on in my 3D current experience, not right now, but back then, and how to heal those things. Then I had to learn about inner child healing, and that's where we got into like the really deep, intense trauma and memories and things. But because I had healed so much in my present experience, I could observe it, still have to process it, but observe it with my inner children and help them work through those things. At that time, I was trying to hear my higher self, and I feel like I couldn't hear her. And that's one of the reasons I got into inner child healing. And I said, okay, well, if I can't hear this way, I'm going to go backwards and heal them. And then I could hear my higher self, because I taught myself how to be a higher self to my inner children. So naturally I became that. So of course I could hear different higher selves over here. And even when I got into modalities, like with the Akashic Records and Reiki and light language, it wasn't necessarily my intention to be able to have spiritual and psychic gifts. It was, how can I heal myself? How can I release more trauma and PTSD? Because in learning about chakras and the Akashic Records, what I realized was that stuff weighs you down. It completely cuts you off from your multidimensional self because it's so heavy and it takes up so much of your mind space. It causes chaos and stress and anxiety and depression. And in order to get up in these upper chakras and these upper realms and dimensions, you can't be bogged down by that stuff. And I also realized that working with my inner children, they're the keepers of your magic and whimsy. As adults, we have so many responsibilities and stressors and like capitalism and like all societal programming, all this stuff. If you can unravel trauma from your inner children, they will open the portal doors for you to tap into your spiritual and psychic gifts, because we have been inundated with magic's not real or magic is evil and all these things. Little children inside of you don't feel that way. They are full of wonderment and joy and imagination. So if you can unravel those things around them, then you can almost channel your inner children, okay, and their abilities, and they're the ones that get you back to your natural state of being. You are naturally in a state of inner child. That is how we are all supposed to be. That is unity consciousness, and us not having all of these shrouds of heaviness around us. That's why inner children are the framework of all of the work that I do, because 95% of the reason that we have behavioral patterns or blocks or triggers or strife in our life comes from our inner children, because that's when we were being taught how the world works, how other people's trauma projections are put on us, or societal programming through social media or movies or TV. As I release the heaviness with first me in the present and then with my inner children, all of a sudden, all of these things started unlocking. I started to go in so much deeper with people, giving sessions to them and doing sessions with myself, because if you want to access different timelines within self, but you have inner children who are dealing with the same type of like karmic issue as that other timeline over here, you're not going to be able to see the timeline, because there is an impediment in your Akashic field of your seeing. Because how are you going to go help a different timeline if you haven't worked through it in this one? And also the other dimensions and frequencies, like let's say that you want to be a dragon healer or an angel healer or a unicorn healer, or just tap into like galactic starseed stuff, okay? If you are still struggling with self-concept and self-doubt and unworthiness and wondering and questioning if magic is real, that's why you really need to work with your inner children and helping them tap back into their magic and imagination, because you have to be able to play pretend with them before you're able to access real frequencies and dimensions. Because it takes a lot of faith in yourself to sit here and say, oh yeah, I was in the dragon dimension and I was doing this and this and this and this and this, because you'd be questioning yourself saying like, is this real? Am I cuckoo? You know, like, because you're bouncing that off of societal programming and maybe your family members judging you, or you know, all these things that create filter lenses. And so working with your inner children to help them get back to their natural state of being helps you get back to your natural state of being as well. I know it doesn't sound like they're correlated with one another, but unworthiness and imposter syndrome and people pleasing and not holding boundaries, all of those like core wounds are heaviness that keep you from your spiritual gifts. Like sometimes we want to kind of like jump over and say like, oh, I want to be in esotericism and spiritual stuff. The way there is to heal your human, because your human is the channeler. Like you use your physical eyes, you use like your nose, your hands, like yes, they are a frequency that you're tapping into, but your actual physical self is the one that channels those things down and projects them like with other people or clients, or that's how you shift things in your inner field or your auric field in your chakra system. Healing your human is the way to unlock all those things, because it's not you learning, it's you re-remembering your natural homeostasis point. So when you take all that icky yucky stuff off and you're like, ooh, I can see me now. I can see how talented and gifted I am and my true divine magical gifted self. So again, healing and self-love, unconditional self-love, is the way to unlock all those things.